All right, so we want to look at the 5 poems with Emily Dickinson. The Soul Selects Her Own Society, If You Were Coming in the Fall, the Tell All the Truth But Tell It Slant, Apparently With No Surprise, and Success Is Counted Sweetest. We've already looked at Because I Could Not Stop for Death, He Kindly Stopped for Me. But I also want to kind of look at a couple of her themes and some things that are going on in her poems. And these are just 5 selections. And the first one, and I'm going to put it up on the screen, you have it on Jamboard. Now, when we get to the questions, and I'll do the questions after each one that you had for assignment, I'm going to quickly go through that and kind of give you hints, I guess, and maybe I'll give you some answers, and we'll see how that goes. But I want to be able to, let me share, there we go. I could probably share it a little bit bigger. So I am not going to put the questions up on the screen, but I will put the poems as best I can. Let me take the agenda off and, hang on. There we go. There. All right. So the Soul Selects Her Own Society. And the concentration here is to kind of show what slant rhyme looks like to Emily Dickinson. And this is a very good example of what slant rhyme looks like. So if there's an exact rhyme, we're familiar with exact rhyme in our things. Seashell, or she sells seashells by the seashore. I mean, that's not an example of exact rhyme, but you kind of, that's a literary. I thought that was going to be a rhyme there. So I can't think of one right off the bat. So, but anyway, slant rhyme is when words almost rhyme together, or at least the endings of them have a similar sound or almost sound. Like in this one, it's going to be society and majority, or door and more. They're not spelled exactly the same, but that's what slant rhyme should look like. All right, so the soul selects her own society, then shuts the door on her divine majority. She's kind of looking at soul as herself, and I see it, and we all see it because of her reclusiveness. Unmoved, she notes the chariots pausing at her low gate. Unmoved, an emperor is kneeling upon her mat. So basically, an emperor, it's like, all right, so an emperor in ancient Japanese times and Chinese times, an emperor was basically a god. So she's saying that she's not even moving, or that soul has, after she's chosen her own society, she's not even moving to accept the emperor's calling for her or wanting to be part of her society. So I just thought that was interesting. I've known her from an ample nation to only choose one, then close the valves of her attention like stone. Like, she doesn't float around. She doesn't look at multiple images. Anyway, that's a little brief of it. The questions were, and you had 8 of them, so I'm going to try to go quickly. Dickinson uses personification throughout this poem. And the personification, she has human feelings in it. Human feelings, human thoughts, human attitudes that she's giving to this soul. The soul is selecting. The soul shuts the door. All right, so the soul is unmoved. The soul is choosing. So personification is throughout. So what does the soul do in the last stanza? All right, so I paused there for just a second. What does she do? She closes the valves of her attention. She doesn't want to give anybody else attention. So, all right, so majority has 2 meanings. So we have majority here. All right, so what is the majority? And I'm hearing noise outside the classroom, and it's kind of distracting me. And I'm thinking it might be the recycle stuff, so we'll probably get a knock on the door in a second. So if you guys could kind of help out with that, if they knock on the door, make sure who it is first. Majority has 2 meanings: the greater part of something, and then having reached full legal age, which is pretty interesting. An older, obsolete meaning of majority is superiority. What do you think majority means in this poem? And I've kind of suggested the majority might be those around. So, but if it's a superiority, on her divine majority, her godly superiority. So think about that. So the person the soul selects should outweigh all others. So that's a kind of a hint. All right, so, and that was number 2, by the way. So number 3, do you think the phrase valves of her attention is derived from organic things, valves of the heart, or mechanical ones, valves of a faucet, like when you turn the faucet off and stuff. Shutting out people, she closes the valves of her heart. I mean, that's what we do, right? When we no longer care for someone that maybe they've hurt us, maybe they've had done something to us, we just turn our backs. And that's, again, that's kind of a figure of speech for we no longer have our heart towards them. Number 4, Dickinson's early editors changed the word valves to lids, which is kind of interesting. How does this change the metaphor? So the edited metaphor suggests that shutting out unwanted sights. I mean, it means it's just closing it, because like you put a lid on something, it goes dark. It creates a more human image than Dickinson's original. So that's something interesting too. Shutting out unwanted sights. I don't want to see that. I'm putting a lid on it, it's going dark. So that's kind of interesting. But that's not what Dickinson really intended. Number 5 is this. Look at the meter. The meter is this, or the edited unlike 4-syllable words in the first and second stanzas, the 2-syllable lines in paragraph 2 or stanza 2, 10 and 12 show rhythm and add emphasis. Unmoved, she notes the chariots pausing at her low gate. Unmoved, an emperor is kneeling upon her mat. All right, so what was it, number 6? Dickinson gave very few of her poems titles. All right, and we talked about this earlier. So why would this exclusion? Why would this be excluded? I should read the thing. The titles in this text are the first lines of the poems. So her early editors called the poems exclusion. In what ways does this title apply? In what ways is it a limiting title? If they just called it exclusion, I mean, one, you can't call every poem exclusion. Maybe exclusion 1, exclusion 2, all the way up to exclusion 1800. So, and it really actually, I don't know. I know I took a turn on that, but this particular poem, if they called it exclusion, it implies that the soul is excluding individuals, actually many people. But it fails to convey the passion in which the soul selects a soulmate. Because remember, if you call it exclusion, and she selected a soulmate in here, I've known her from an ample nation choose one. That's not exclusion, or could it be? Maybe that's another word. Okay, so last 2, number 7. As the last word stone affects the overall impression of the poem, the word stone emphasizes power. Okay? It emphasizes the power of that soul's exclusion. I mean, people come up to her. People, or even the emperor. Other slant. Let's see. The slant rhymes include society, majority, gate and mat, nature, or nation and attention. Nation, attention, because there's the spell there. And number 8, the last one. It's really up to you. But most people remain open to forming friendships, even close ones, with more than one person. So just kind of think about that. How does that apply to the question?